From the streets of Dublin to an Oscar, musicians fill stadiums. Others fill hearts. For decades, Glen Hansard did both. His voice wasn't polished by fame. It was shaped by the streets of Dublin. He was the busker who became an Oscar winner, the songwriter whose music gave hope to millions. Then, on July 29, 2026, heartbreaking news spread across the world. Glen Hansard had died at the age of 56 following a motorcycle crash near Dublin. Fans couldn't believe it. How could a man whose songs inspired so much life be gone so suddenly? Tonight, we're looking beyond the headlines to tell the remarkable story of the man, the music, and the legacy he leaves behind. A boy growing up in Dublin, long before the Academy Award, before sold-out concerts, before millions knew his name. Glen Hansard was simply a young boy growing up on the north side of Dublin, Ireland. Born on April 21, 1970, he grew up in a working-class family where life wasn't always easy. Money was limited. Opportunities were few. But music was everywhere. Irish folk songs drifted through homes and pubs. Street musicians performed on busy corners. The sound of guitars became part of everyday life. For Glen, music wasn't just entertainment. It became a way of understanding the world. Unlike many future stars, he wasn't chasing fame. He simply wanted to play. But before anyone outside Ireland had heard his name, Glen made a decision that shocked many people around him. He left school at just 13 years old, and that decision would completely change the course of his life. Choosing music over everything. Leaving school at such a young age came with enormous uncertainty. There were no guarantees, no recording contracts, no famous producers waiting to discover him. Instead, Glen worked odd jobs while spending nearly every free moment with a guitar in his hands. He learned by listening, watching, practicing, performing anywhere he could. The streets of Dublin became his classroom. Every performance taught him something new. How to hold an audience. How to connect through lyrics. How to turn ordinary moments into unforgettable songs. Years later, many fans would say that authenticity became the defining quality of his music. He didn't sound manufactured. He sounded real. The birth of the Frames. In 1990, Glen helped form a band that would become one of Ireland's most respected rock groups, the Frames. At first, success came slowly. The band performed in small clubs, tiny venues, local festivals. Sometimes the audiences were small. Sometimes the pay barely covered expenses. But they kept playing, night after night, year after year. Instead of chasing trends, the Frames focused on something timeless. Honest songwriting, emotion, and unforgettable live performances. Gradually, word began to spread. People weren't just listening to Glen Hansard. They were feeling every word he sang. But even as the Frames built a loyal following, a chance opportunity in Hollywood would introduce Glen Hansard to an entirely new audience. And it happened almost by accident. His first taste of acting. In 1991, Glen appeared in Alan Parker's musical film The Commitments. Although it wasn't a leading role, the experience exposed him to filmmaking for the first time. Many people assumed acting might become his future, but Glen remained focused on music. For him, songs always came first. Still, the experience would prove valuable years later, because another film, made with almost no budget, would eventually change his life forever. Years of quiet persistence. The years that followed weren't filled with overnight success. They were filled with persistence. The Frames continued touring, recording albums, building a devoted fan base across Ireland and Europe. Critics praised Glen's songwriting. Fellow musicians admired his honesty. Yet global superstardom remained out of reach. For many artists, this is where dreams fade. Years of hard work, little recognition, financial uncertainty. But Glen kept believing in the music, not because it guaranteed success, because he couldn't imagine doing anything else. Then, one small independent film, made with almost no money, would create one of the greatest musical success stories of the 21st century. The film that changed everything. In 2007, audiences were introduced to a simple Irish film called Once. Unlike most Hollywood productions, it didn't rely on expensive special effects. There were no explosions, no superheroes, no elaborate action scenes. Instead, it told the intimate story of two struggling musicians trying to find hope through music. Glen Hansard starred alongside Czech musician Markéta Erglova. Their performances felt so genuine that many viewers forgot they were watching actors. It felt real. The songs weren't just part of the movie. They became its heartbeat. Among them was one unforgettable composition, Falling Slowly, a song that crossed every border. No one expected Falling Slowly to become a worldwide phenomenon. The song quietly spread from cinemas to playlists, from radio stations to concert halls. People connected with its honesty, its vulnerability, its hope. Then came Hollywood's biggest night, the Academy Awards. Against all expectations, Falling Slowly won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. The world watched as Glen Hansard and Marketa Irglova stood on the Oscar stage. For a musician who had spent years busking on Dublin streets, it was almost unbelievable. The boy who once played for passing strangers was now holding one of cinema's highest honors. Winning an Oscar changed Glen Hansard's career forever. But fame never changed the man himself. Instead of chasing celebrity, he chose something far more meaningful. And that decision would earn him admiration far beyond the world of music. Staying true to himself. After the success of Once, opportunities arrived from around the world. Major concerts, international tours, award ceremonies, collaborations with some of the biggest names in music. Yet Glen remained remarkably grounded. He continued supporting local musicians. He frequently returned to perform in Dublin, and every Christmas Eve, he took part in a tradition that became legendary. A simple street performance raising money for people experiencing homelessness. For Glen, success wasn't measured by record sales. It was measured by giving back. By the early 2020s, Glen Hansard had become far more than a singer-songwriter. He was an Oscar winner, a humanitarian, a symbol of authenticity in an industry often driven by fame. It seemed his story still had many chapters left to be written. But in the summer of 2026, everything changed in an instant. A motorcycle ride near Dublin would end in tragedy, and the music world would lose one of its most heartfelt voices. The success, the legacy, and the tragic final ride. Winning an Oscar changes many artists. Some chase bigger paychecks. Others disappear from the spotlight. But Glen Hansard chose a different path. Instead of becoming another Hollywood celebrity, he returned to the streets where his journey had begun. The same streets where he once played music for strangers. The same streets that shaped the songs millions would eventually fall in love with. That decision revealed exactly who Glen Hansard truly was. Life after the Oscar. When Once won the Academy Award for Best Original Song, Glen Hansard suddenly found himself on the world's biggest stages. Concert invitations arrived from every continent. His albums reached new audiences. Sold-out theaters became the norm. Music critics praised his songwriting as some of the most honest of his generation. But despite international success, very little about Glen actually changed. Friends often said he remained the same person they had always known. Soft-spoken, thoughtful, curious, and deeply grateful. Unlike many artists overwhelmed by fame, Glen never seemed interested in becoming larger than life. He preferred letting the music speak for itself. But there was one collaboration that fans simply couldn't get enough of. A partnership that produced some of the most emotional live performances of the last 20 years. The Swell Season. Following the success of Once, Glen Hansard and Marketa Irglova continued making music together as the Swell Season. Their chemistry was undeniable, not because of elaborate stage productions, but because every performance felt genuine. Audiences weren't watching two celebrities. They were watching two musicians completely immersed in the songs. Tracks like Falling Slowly, When Your Mind's Made Up, and Lies became favorites among fans around the world. Their concerts often felt intimate, even in large venues. Many people described leaving those performances feeling as though they had witnessed something deeply personal. The music wasn't designed to impress. It was designed to connect. More than a musician. As his career continued to grow, Glen became known for something beyond music. Compassion. He regularly supported charities across Ireland. He participated in benefit concerts for humanitarian causes. He used his platform to raise awareness for homelessness, mental health, refugee support, and community organizations. One tradition became especially meaningful. Every Christmas Eve, Glen joined fellow musicians for a street performance on Dublin's Grafton Street. Thousands gathered each year. Not for fame, not for publicity, but to raise money for people experiencing homelessness. The event became one of Ireland's most beloved holiday traditions. It perfectly reflected who Glen Hansard was. A a world-famous artist who never forgot where he came from. As the years passed, fans noticed something remarkable. Despite his success, Glen still looked happiest doing the simplest thing imaginable, standing with a guitar, telling stories through music, a career built on authenticity. Unlike many modern artists, Glen Hansard rarely relied on elaborate production. His greatest strength was honesty. His lyrics explored love, loss, hope, loneliness, and resilience. Listeners often said his songs felt like conversations rather than performances. That authenticity earned him admiration from fellow musicians around the world. He collaborated with internationally respected artists, performed at prestigious festivals, and continued releasing critically acclaimed music. Yet fame never seemed to define him. He remained committed to the craft itself, writing songs, performing live, connecting with audiences. A sudden tragedy. Then came the summer of 2026. On July 28th, Glen Hansard was involved in a serious motorcycle crash near Dublin. Emergency services responded quickly. He was transported to the hospital with severe injuries. News spread rapidly across Ireland. At first, fans hoped he would recover. Messages of support flooded social media. People around the world prayed for good news. Friends and fellow musicians asked the public to respect his family's privacy, while doctors did everything they could. For a brief moment, hope remained. Then, less than 24 hours later, the heartbreaking announcement arrived. The news that shocked the world. On July 29th, 2026, Glen Hansard passed away at the age of 56. His family confirmed his death, asking for privacy as they mourned an unimaginable loss. The announcement sent shockwaves throughout the music world. Fans struggled to accept that someone whose voice had comforted millions was suddenly gone. For many, it didn't seem real. Only days earlier, his music continued inspiring people across streaming platforms, concert halls, and playlists around the world. Now, tributes were replacing tour announcements. An outpouring of love. Within hours, heartfelt messages poured in from every corner of the music industry. Artists who had shared stages with Glen remembered his generosity. Songwriters praised his honesty. Fans posted stories about how his music had helped them through heartbreak, grief, and difficult moments in life. Irish leaders honored him as one of the country's greatest musical ambassadors. International musicians spoke not only about his extraordinary talent, but about his kindness. Again and again, the same words appeared: genuine, humble, compassionate. Those qualities seemed to define him as much as his music. But perhaps the most remarkable part of Glen Hansard's story wasn't the awards he won, or even the songs he wrote. It was the impact he had on ordinary people, a legacy that no accident could ever erase. As tributes continued arriving from around the world, one question kept resurfacing. How does a musician who never chased fame become one of the most beloved artists of his generation? The answer wasn't found in record sales or awards. It was found in the lives he touched. A legacy that will echo forever. When the news of Glen Hansard's death spread across the world, people didn't just remember an Oscar winner. They remembered the man who proved that a guitar, a powerful voice, and an honest song could change someone's life. For millions of fans, his greatest achievement wasn't winning an Academy Award. It was making people feel understood. The music never needed special effects. In today's music industry, success is often measured by streaming numbers, social media followers, or elaborate stage productions. Glen Hansard built his career differently. He didn't rely on spectacle. He relied on storytelling. His songs spoke about love, loss, hope, loneliness, second chances, and the quiet struggles that many people never talk about. That honesty created something incredibly rare. People didn't just listen to Glen's music. They lived with it. His songs became part of weddings, road trips, heartbreak, and healing. For countless fans, his voice became the soundtrack to important moments in their lives. But what happened after his passing revealed something extraordinary. His influence reached far beyond the music charts. Tributes from around the world. Within hours of the announcement, tributes began arriving from every corner of the world. Musicians shared personal memories. Actors remembered working alongside him. Fans posted videos of concerts they would never forget. Many people described Glen as one of the kindest artists they had ever met. Irish leaders honored him as a national treasure. Fellow musicians remembered his generosity and his willingness to help young artists. Many noted that despite international success, he never lost touch with his roots. He remained the same humble musician who once played on the streets of Dublin. That consistency earned him something far more valuable than fame. It earned him respect. The Christmas Eve tradition. Among all the stories shared after his passing, one tradition appeared again and again. Every Christmas Eve, while many celebrities celebrated privately, Glen Hansard stood on Grafton Street in Dublin with fellow musicians. Not for publicity, not for record sales, but to raise money for people experiencing homelessness. Thousands gathered every year. The concerts became symbols of compassion. For Glen, success meant using his voice to help others. It wasn't something he talked about often. He simply showed up, year after year. That quiet generosity became one of the defining chapters of his life. Yet perhaps Glen's greatest gift wasn't his voice. It was the courage to remain authentic in an industry that often rewards imitation. A generation of songwriters. Many younger artists have credited Glen Hansard as an inspiration, not because they wanted to sound exactly like him, but because he showed that honesty could still succeed. He proved that deeply personal songs could reach audiences around the world, without chasing trends, without sacrificing authenticity. His career reminded aspiring musicians that great songs begin with genuine emotion. Not expensive production, not marketing, just truth. That lesson may continue influencing songwriters for decades. The film that continues to inspire. Nearly 20 years after its release, once remains one of the most beloved independent musical films ever made. Students study it in film schools. Musicians cite it as inspiration. Its songs continue to appear on playlists around the world. Many people who discover the film today have no idea how small its original budget was, or how unlikely its success seemed. Yet that is exactly what made it special. It proved that authentic storytelling can compete with the biggest Hollywood productions. At the center of that story was Glen Hansard. As fans revisited his music after his passing, many noticed something almost heartbreaking. His songs suddenly carried an entirely new meaning. The lasting power of his voice. Great artists never truly disappear. Their work continues speaking long after they're gone. Every time someone listens to Falling Slowly, or watches once for the first time, Glen Hansard's voice lives on. New listeners continue discovering his music. Older fans return to songs that help them through difficult chapters of life. That is the remarkable thing about music. It has the power to outlive all of us. And Glen understood that better than most. He once said that songs belong to the people who listen to them. Perhaps that's why his music continues finding new audiences. Each listener discovers something different. Hope, healing, comfort, or simply the feeling that someone else understands. More than awards. Yes, he won an Academy Award. He earned international acclaim. He sold out concert halls. But if you ask many fans what they'll remember most, it won't be the trophies. It will be the honesty, the humility, the kindness. The unforgettable performances where it felt as though he was singing directly to every person in the audience. Very few artists leave behind that kind of connection. Glen Hansard did. Lessons from his life. His journey reminds us that success isn't always about becoming the most famous person in the room. Sometimes it's about remaining true to yourself. He taught us that authenticity matters, that compassion matters, that giving back matters, and that a single song can change someone's life in ways we'll never fully understand. From a teenager busking on Dublin streets to an Oscar-winning songwriter admired around the world, his life proved that extraordinary dreams can begin in the most ordinary places. Years from now, someone will press play on Falling Slowly for the very first time. They'll wonder, who wrote a song this beautiful? And that's when they'll discover Glen Hansard. Not just the musician, not just the Oscar winner, but the humble storyteller whose voice continues to inspire long after his final performance. Final thoughts. Glen Hansard's passing marks the end of an extraordinary chapter in music history, but his legacy will continue through every song he wrote, every artist he inspired, and every listener who found comfort in his music. His journey reminds us that greatness isn't measured only by awards or fame. It's measured by the lives we touch. And by that measure, Glen Hansard's legacy is truly timeless. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you enjoyed this tribute, please like this video and subscribe for more fact-based documentaries about legendary musicians, actors, and remarkable real-life stories. What is your favorite Glen Hansard song or performance? and what made it so special to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's celebrate his incredible legacy together.